Chat decided Butcher's going to be the hero of the day, so here we go. I think it's important that we start talking about Butcher and the Butcher is not a highly contested hero. Butcher is one-dimensional. That is correct, sir. He's one-dimensional. He auto-attacks and does damage. That's it. When you don't do much in the way of ability damage, it means that you can be countered if you are only specifically good. Ranged healers that or ranged damage dealers that specifically just do damage and never auto-attack, which you should be, is a different story. Butcher is required to be in the middle of a fight, and there are numerous counters, numerous heroes that have blinds. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Butcher is a bad hero. It just means that you need to strategize with him. So the one big thing that we need to keep in mind is that Butcher is a very, very opportunistic hero. I can't just YOLO in every single time I want. I can't do that. I have a point and click stun, as in I just charge at a hero and that's going to be the stun. Recently they made a change so you can cancel this earlier. That's one thing you should always remember is you can cancel this. And so you can cancel this if you think this isn't a good target. We'll talk about some of the charge targets later, but right now we're going to just focus on picking Butcher should be prioritized after second bans in draft. If you're playing it in quick match, so be it. But if you're in a draft like unranked or Storm League, draft it after. But here's the thing about point and click heroes and heroes with stuns. I need two things to generally go along with that. Burst damage of any type from a ranged damage dealer and follow-up CC from literally any hero in the game. Why? Because despite me stunning them and doing a little bit of damage and getting potentially 2 auto attacks out in that time, I need to make sure that I can help kill that. What works good? Having a 3-man, 4-man gank squad with Butcher works really good. Rotations, anybody that gets caught out. Having a functional team. If you're just running around trying to get kills by yourself, it's bad. So for those of you that do have a Butcher on a team, try and find those targets. If you're a tank, follow them around. If you're a damage dealer, try and make sure and save your cooldowns for when that Butcher charges. There's very few heroes that can actually live through a full CC train and some burst damage, especially when it comes from a point-and-click stun. So anybody that has follow-up CC, whether it be a tank, whether it be a Tyrande, whether it be a Gravity Lapse, whether it be any number of those, try and save cooldowns to enable your Butcher. If you're playing with a Butcher, you might get tilted that that Butcher's not very good, and then you're just upset because the Butcher's like, oh, you got no damage. Guess what? Butcher's not going to do damage until he's stacked. It's the nature of the beast, and that's the way it goes. Help the Butcher, get that out of the way. We'll talk about the talents in just a second, but you have to understand, playing with a Butcher is almost as important as understanding of how to play Butcher. They click, you follow up, you have cooldowns on range behind that. You do damage, you kill people. So anything you can do to stack Butcher early is going to be the best bet. If you're a Butcher, you have to look for very important things. If a Johanna is there and I haven't seen Iron Skin, I'm definitely not charging a Johanna. If I see Iron Skin and she's still in the middle of the fight, if there's a lot of Johannas at lower levels that like to just press D so they can walk in and use Condemn on minions. That's actually generally bad because you don't normally need Iron Skin to walk in that instance. Normally you try and save your Iron Skin to walk out. So with that being said, you can look for those things because if Johanna's that far in, she doesn't have the mobility to get out and I'm waiting for that to wear off and then we try and blow up the Johanna. It's possible. So with that, you got to be able to look for priority targets. We'll talk about that again. Your Q, one thing to remember about this, the Butcher's next basic attack will strike immediately, meaning that you want to auto Q auto because it's really fast. So when you walk up onto somebody and you charge, you would ideally like to auto Q auto, different things that can work for you. Basic attacks here against branded heroes, heal for double and extend the duration of the brand by 0.5 seconds, meaning that you can heal for a long time onto people. All of this plays into it. So you brand them, you get movement speed potentially later, but it's all about making sure to heal. It's charge, heals, and that. Another thing about using your W, you don't always have to W your charge target. They might easily just be cleansed. They might be pulled. They might just walk away. Save your W if you need it on another target. If you feel like you're all in on one target, yes, press W on that target. Normally it's an EW, auto Q, auto. That's pretty much how a lot of things go. We'll see here in just a second. So let's talk about the talents. Butcher because all he does is auto attack damage, and let's be real, he does a lot of auto attack damage, but his trait says that after he has 120 or 200 meat, he gets 25% increased attack speed. That's where things really come into play, and that's what makes Butcher really scary. The damage is nice, but the attack speed is the scariest part. So because of that, there's so much weight, and I mean, there is a tremendous amount of weight already in your trait. You don't have to really spec into talents to do more damage. Why? Because all of that is there. So what you need to do as a butcher is somehow stay alive so that when you go in, if things don't go well, you don't instantly just get destroyed, and hopefully you survive a little bit longer than just a one target kill. So now there's a couple things to consider at one. Block is a very good talent. If I'm going against something that has fast auto attack speed, Lucio, Zarya, Tassadar, something weird like that, it's not going to go very well for me. Block is, for most purposes, a really good talent because it helps reduce damage, and, well, I don't want to die as Butcher because I want to get stacked, and this helps out really well. If I don't have a lot of wave clear on my team, and I know that I can either 4-person rotate or I'm going to be holding a solo lane, Chop Meat isn't bad. If I'm holding a solo lane, I'll probably still go block, but normally I don't want to be holding a solo lane. Chop Meat isn't bad. On maps like Tomb the Spider Queen, this isn't bad. Generally, you have a 4-man composition that will rotate, and you don't have to be the wave clear hero, but Chop Meat is actually really good when it comes to getting that early game value of stacking up off minions. Ideally, you're eventually going to need a hero kill or 2 or 5 to reach that 200 max, else it's going to be a very long and arduous game. Chop Meat's not bad. There is some merit to Invigoration into Flail Axe with that combo, but I think that for most purposes, if you're actually tryharding as Butcher, you have to be able to wave clear, you have to be able to stay alive in a fight. Despite the balance that you can have as a poke Butcher, I don't think that's the route you're going to be comfortable with, and you're going to look pretty silly. Despite having some moderate success by pressing Q a lot, it's going to be pretty ugly because if you're pressing Q with longer Q, it means that you're probably also not auto-attacking, and even if you are hitting somebody longer, it's just not the hot. Also, as a Butcher, don't be afraid to kill tanks. It's definitely possible. Block's very good. Chop Meat otherwise, if you need the wave clear. If you don't need the wave clear, I would definitely be going block unless they have very fast autos. Then I would definitely go Chop Meat. At level 4, there's 2 good talents here. Both of them revolve in 2 different areas, and this is actually going to be really hard to explain. Unrelenting Pursuit means that I go from a 15-second cooldown to a 10-second cooldown whenever I hit. If I don't hit somebody and I cancel early, this doesn't proc. Cheap Shot is another one. Hamstring does 100% more damage to targets that are slowed, rooted, or stunned. Since that's generally going to be you stunning them and then auto Q auto in the middle of all that, that means I'm going to get some bonus damage in terms of single target blow up. If I know that I have some follow-up CC, and I know that my team's at least going to be, on average, following up on what I've got, extra single target damage, if I'm charging that target, that means it's pretty easy to see who that is, and I can make use of that. Because of that, that means a lot of damage from my team and more single target damage for myself. Of course, it works in other ways with the slows, root, and stuns on other heroes, but in general, Cheap Shot is good for making sure that that target that you're after is also going to die. It's not a lot of extra damage, but it's really good. Now, if I'm playing against the team that I know doesn't have a lot of sustain or doesn't, this is really hard because Unrelenting Pursuit is good. It allows me to be very active in a fight. It allows me to go from one kill to the next. If I have just a lot of damage and I don't have to be the one trying to do the bonus damage, and I know I've got a lot of follow-up CC, I don't necessarily need Cheap Shot. I need people to die. My team helps them die. Then we can move on to the next. A 5-second cooldown on this means that I can now go on top of another target. Let's assume that I charge a target. They die in 2 seconds. That's 8 seconds later. We can do it all over again. Most other heroes don't have 8 seconds on cooldown CC to follow up on that, but things do work. So with Unrelenting Pursuit, I like this in against certain comps, but it also requires me to have a certain comp as well. If I know that I'm not going to be under threat a lot, I can use Unrelenting Pursuit. Most fights are all about killing one target first and snowballing from there. Because of that, getting the initial kill is generally better, but if the enemy team doesn't pose a lot of threat, I'm going to go Unrelenting Pursuit because a point-and-click CC stun on 10 seconds is still pretty dang good. So I keep in mind, and it's really hard to break down how many different compositions are like that, but you need to get it into your mindset of, am I really needing to kill somebody ASAP? If so, cheap shot is where it goes. Am I going to be able to help with the assistance from my team and then move on to the next Ruthless Onslaught? Yes, then I'm going to go Unrelenting Pursuit. That's just the way it is. It's really hard to kind of break that down, but overall you can see that there's going to be value in both of them and not so much Flail Axe. There is a lot of value in Poke, but we're not going to go down that path. Level 7. There's one talent here that kind of stands above the rest. Going back to my initial thought of, as a butcher, my job is to stay alive. I need to get in there, and normally when a butcher charges in, everybody hears it, and then everybody sees it, and there's no mistaking the idea that somebody's going to try and kill you before you kill them. You're either going to get blinded, you're going to get stunned, you're going to get CC'd, and nobody's going to let you do anything. So how do I survive that? Meat Shield. When Ruthless hits, again, same condition as my level 4, I get 50 spell armor for 2.5 seconds. This means that I get to stay alive a little bit longer. Now, if I'm going against a full auto attack team, maybe I consider going into something else, but even auto attackers have some type of spell damage, and reducing any type of that. Again, most of my damage is weighted into my trait and into my kit. I don't need more damage or more everything else. Insatiable Blade used to be really good. They've nerfed this so much where it doesn't really help. While facing a branded enemy, your movement speed is increased. That normally means after you W somebody, you can stay on top of them, which means more healing. But most of the time, your hamstring should be good enough to get at least a couple of extra auto attacks out. And you don't necessarily need to chase people anyway, since the focus target's going to be on one. The movement speed just not the same anymore. Meat Shield is the way to go. This is how you survive, and that's just the way it is. Victuals, the only map I could really this would be conceivable on, is Tomb of the Spider Queen. But even then, my fights are happening to kill people. Victuals just doesn't have that in a team fight, the same impact that I'm going to have, say, from Meat Shield. This is really only for basically one map. It's such a weird talent. Now, level 10. How can I guarantee a kill onto a target? Lamb to the Slaughter does that. Lamb to the Slaughter actually has a really big range. Things that I look for. Has Cleanse been used? If so, then let's go. Has Iron Skin been used? Has a lot of CC, counter CC, have a lot of these things been used already? Lamb to the Slaughter means I can do that. I can isolate one person out of a fight. I can charge a target and put Lamb to the Slaughter on them, making it even easier for my team to kill that target. There's so many different things that Lamb to the Slaughter does, plus it has one of the most insane level 20 upgrades in the entire game with Slaughterhouse, because this thing is actually ridiculous. Lamb to the Slaughter is really good because you can now single out a target more than just charging them. It's on a 90-second cooldown, so you got to keep that in mind. This does damage to them, albeit not a ton, but it makes it very difficult for them. If the enemy team has a lot of disengage, a mighty gust, things like that, then this is a long cooldown that, I need to be very aware of those things, or I can use Lamb to the Slaughter on those targets. Because it has a 1-second delay, it means that I could very easily miss and somebody walks out of it. If, say, you have a lot of blinds or a lot of counter CC or a lot of counter engage, this might be pretty rough. Furnace Blast, for what it's worth, is generally I press R and then I press E to charge that target so that when I get there, I'm exploding on top of them. 500 damage is nothing to scoff at. This is level 0 damage, so it, of course, scales up. It's nothing to scoff at. I actually don't think this is as bad as people realize, and they think this is really bad. Is it great? No. Can it have the same impact as Lamb to the Slaughter? Kinda. I actually don't mind Furnace Blast, and a lot of people do. Lamb to the Slaughter is going to be, if you're actually trying as Butcher, it's going to be there. There is a place where if the enemy team doesn't have anything and we are single target blasting, and they have no counter CC, and they have no disengage, and they have no cleanse, hell yeah, I'm going Furnace Blast. I'll blast that target. I'll have enough damage myself, and my team will have enough damage, and we kill that one target, and it's on a 60-second cooldown. So take it for what you will. Keep that in mind on the enemy team. If they don't have like any tools to deal with it, Furnace Blast isn't bad. It just doesn't have the same type of 20 impact that you would have on Slaughterhouse. Level 13, there is one talent, and it is Brutal Strike. After using Hamstring, which, by the way, is on a 4-second cooldown, my next 3 auto attacks within 5 seconds, which means I'm essentially going to have 100% uptime, deals 15% additional damage. This is a lot of damage in the late game. Once I'm stacked, this is really good. Keep in mind that I'm also healing for 75% of the damage that I'm doing to branded targets, which means that I'm also getting bonus healing by way of this. Savage Charge is if I go the level 4 Unrelenting Pursuit, and if the enemy team somehow has a lot of big beefy targets that I need to constantly charge in front of me and I'm never diving the backline. Even then, Brutal Strikes is really good. This is for more specific scenarios, and if you play a Butcher a lot, eventually you'll start to figure those out. But I'm not going to advocate for this, just like I'm not going to advocate for Cleaver, even if you're on Infernal Shrines. This is silly. I'm out to kill one person. Once that one person is dead, I move on to the next. I am a killing machine. I'm not an AoE machine. I'm not a charge bot. I am actually a crazy murderer, axe murderer in every degree. Every degree. Brutal Strike is where it's at. Level 16. Continuing down the train of thought that when I get into a fight, it gets messy. If I know that blinds are coming, I'm saving my W. I'm going to be taking my lumps. Every time I initiate a fight, I know that I'm going to be countered, no matter what. It doesn't matter who I'm on. Doesn't matter what's happening. People will try and kill me. With what I've gone so far between block and meat shield, things are looking pretty good. So it shouldn't come as any surprise that at level 16, Enraged is where it's at. While below 50% of his maximum health, taking damage causes the Butcher to become enraged for 10 seconds. That gives me more attack speed and 25 armor. There is a 25-second internal cooldown, which means there's a 15-second downtime. But having 40% attack speed for 10 seconds and 25 armor is pretty nuts. It's really good. You should definitely be doing this. If you're not, I don't really know what's happening. My food should be here in a moment. Enraged is really good for so many different reasons. Getting into a fight, surviving in a fight is what this is all about. We'll hit a quick pause. Hello? 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 Cool conversation. I'm pretty sure the delivery. Give me 1 second. Finish that thought. Enraged is really, really good. There's no reason why you should go anything else at this talent. Staying alive is enough because you're getting stacked and everything there. Everybody's been hit by a Butcher that's fully stacked plus some bonus. It hurts. And if you can't kill him, it hurts some more because that damage is always there. And if he has 40% attack speed, it's there. Plus, with 40% attack speed, that means I attack more because my brand just allows me to continue to hit people. Enraged, OP. Now, level 20, you should probably almost always go Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse is a game-changing heroic. There's not many heroics that have this type of impact. It is ridiculous. To be able to silence 2 to 3 people and watch them stand there and be able to do almost nothing and not even walk away is crazy. Slaughterhouse, to be able to cast from distance, to be able to hit multiple people, to follow up on a lot is just one of the most OP things in the game. Slaughterhouse should be picked. Now, if I'm having trouble with a lot of these things and it's a 90-second cooldown, Bolt of the Storm somehow still exists on Butcher, and this isn't too bad. This isn't too bad if I need to be able to get the safety. There's certain compositions where I know I'm just going to get really, really punished for being Butcher. Bolt of the Storm gives me that sustainability in a fight to, one, I already have a bunch of defensive talents to keep me alive, but if things go wrong, I can bolt, and then I can come back in with my Butcher's brand and heal up off of another target. This is a great defensive option, and I think that it can be snap locked at 20 if it helps basically secure the game or secure a life. But Slaughterhouse is the way to go. If I did go Furnace Blast, there is no possible way I will ever pick Fires of Hell. This talent is so bad, I hate to even read it. After 3 seconds, it's going to blow up again. What? Who the hell is going to stand there for me to blow up on him? It's a bad talent, man. Bolt of the Storm then becomes a higher priority pick. If I just want to face roll and completely steamroll the people I'm facing because they can't do anything because I'm just blasting them as Butcher, first Bolt of the Storm allows me another way to get on top of them. But if all else fails, I'll go Nexus Blades for more bonus damage, and it slows enemy targets, which means I can stay on top of them. That's if I went Furnace Blast, and if I'm crazy enough not to pick Bolt, I just want to style on some people, I'll pick Nexus Blades. Those are the talents. Pick defensive talents to stay alive since all the weight is put into your trait. That's one of the reasons why Butcher is so easily countered. If he doesn't finish his stacking, he's basically a terrible hero and he can't do anything. If you work with a Butcher and follow up CC and hold your cooldowns as a damage dealer and pretend Butcher's a tank, if you're a Li Ming, I am pleading, charge anybody. I can land every single ability from max range and just do serious amounts of damage because I have somebody that's stationary like Butcher, and I know it's coming. Hold your CC, follow up on Butcher. If you're a Butcher, know what CC is out there. If I see a Gravity Lapse go out from Kael'thas, I'm okay now to kind of go in. If I'm going against a Kael'thas, also remember that if you are a Kael'thas on the other side, you can actually Gravity Lapse right as the Butcher is hitting you. There's a brief window to where you can Gravity Lapse the Butcher because it's technically an ability that comes out from your body. And so if you cast it from here, the Unstoppable goes away from Butcher, and then it can hit Butcher as the Unstoppable wears off. It's kind of a hard thing to figure out, but it's actually pretty easy to do. There are other talents that are similar to that as well. So with a lot of this being said, as a Butcher, you're almost killing nobody alone. There's almost nobody you can kill alone in the early game. It's so ridiculous. You'd have to have somebody just stand on top of you. Your auto attack damage isn't enough. So you are reliant on not being countered. If I early pick a Butcher, I'm expecting a Johanna, I'm expecting a Lily, and I might expect a Cassia. If you're a Cassia player, you have a stun blind. So if I get stunned, I drop a blind down. So if I'm going against a Butcher, that's what I'll pick. If I'm a Butcher, I'm checking my tab to look at level 4 talents to make sure that exists. I need to be able to look at talents to read people that have counters towards me. I need to be able to pick Butcher later. I need to force things when it's forceable. I can't just force it every time. I can't just full YOLO dive. I also have to be okay with blowing up tanks. I can't just try and be like, I'm Butcher. My job is to kill squishies. Guess what? Until you have even some stacks at all, those squishies will walk away from you. You can't do enough damage. It's just not possible. If they're alone and out in the middle of the lane, sure, go for it. But most of the time, you're going to get kited like crazy, and there's not much you can do. With enough stacks, you can basically 3 or 4 auto attack somebody, and then things look a lot different. Without stacks, it's impossible. You need to do more with your team. As a Butcher, your team needs to understand that you're a Butcher and they need to help you. At higher levels, Butcher can work. If everybody wonders, like, well, Butcher has a high win rate in Masters and Diamond, albeit probably high Diamond. Butcher has a high win rate there. Why? Because most people know how to play with heroes with CC. They know how to hold cooldowns. They know how to follow up. At lower levels, it's just basically let's coin toss and figure out what happens. Does Butcher get stacked because my team just kept splitting and dying? Butcher OP. Or I get the Butcher that doesn't get any stacks, my team doesn't do anything, and Butcher ends the game with 13,000 hero damage and everybody flames the Butcher. Part of that is the Butcher's fault, part of that is your fault. You really have to be considerate with, do I need to work with the Butcher? How do we work with the Butcher? And if not, boy, you're playing from behind and it can be pretty brutal. Butcher is an all-in hero. He's a one-trick. All he does is auto attack. He doesn't do anything spectacular other than just murk people. That's all he does. And so if you can get people on the same page and you can murk people together, Butcher now isn't too bad. He can still be countered late game. That doesn't mean he's unkillable, but you have to play around a lot of those things. Remember, auto Q auto is the way to go. This gives you more sustain. You put your brand, you charge, you brand, you auto, you Q, and then you auto again. It means more instant healing, more high impact healing. But at the same time, you also have to remember that if I'm going in and I know I'm going to get CC'd, I might hold my W and switch targets so that I can stay onto them and then save my other abilities for those things. I don't always want to just press all my buttons. It's really easy to EW Q or EW auto Q auto. It's really easy to do that. There's nothing that says you can't do that. But when I know that there's other counters, I have to be more patient with my W and my Q abilities as well as my E ability. I look for those opportunities. I make those happen. And you can create a lot of cool things with Butcher, but you can also just be countered and then you're just like, GG, go next. And that's Butcher, man. You're all in or you're all dead. We'll see what you guys do. But